Hey everybody, it's Jess. So I am writing some plot for my local LARP. It's called the Lorraine Trust. I'm behind on my deadline, but I am going to take a little break, and while I'm doing that I thought I would share some tips that I have if you are looking to write plot for your own LARP. Now bear in mind, I am not the most experienced LARP writer. I've only been writing plot for about 2 years, but these are some tips that I have been given from other people in my community who are very, very good at what they do. They make some brilliant storylines. I love to play with them. So yeah, I thought I would share some of these tips with you guys because at the end of the day, what you want out of LARP most of all is to go have fun and be part of a really awesome story. So I've got 5 tips for you all, and they're really easy to implement, and they help me especially get through the process of creating a plot. Okay, so number 1, this was the very, very first piece of advice I was ever given, and it was given to me before I even started considering to write plot. So when you write your plot, you have to consider that for whatever reason you're not going to make it to your event. Anything can happen. You can get a car crash, or you get sick or whatever. And this is kind of reflected on me at the moment because my surgery to get my gallbladder out is just over a week away, and I'm going to be recovering for 2 weeks, which means I'm missing my first Lorraine Trust event since 2015. And I have a plot that's supposed to be running. So I've got some wonderful people have stepped forward and said, we'll run it for you, and that's great, but they need to know what they're doing. So the first piece of advice I was always given was make your brief as detailed as possible, because it is a possibility that someone is going to have to run it for you. And at the end of the day, you want to try and get it to run as smoothly as possible. You don't want them to sort of be looking at it and going, what's supposed to happen here? What happens if, the players do this? You want to make everyone's lives as simple as possible, and you want to try and get the conclusion that you planned for it. That being said, here is my next piece of advice. Number 2. You're going to have to keep in mind that players are independent thinkers who will never ever come to 100% the conclusion that you pictured when you started writing this thing. I wrote my very first plot a few years ago, and I had some environmentalists come, and they hated everybody who was hunting things. So they ended up coming to sort of a negotiation with the player base about if they got their own private land for a nature reserve, then they would leave my players alone. And what I expected, because these characters have been so awful, I expected the player base to just go no and kill them all. What I did not expect was the players to go, okay, here's an island. Right. So I had to then write an encounter for them all where these creatures came back and picked up their paperwork for this island that the players just agreed to give them. And I wasn't expecting to do that. And I had to do that pretty much on the fly, and it went really well, and it was a good piece of it was a really great conclusion, but it really wasn't what I was expecting. That actually leads on to my 3rd point. If the players have a good idea about solving your plot, don't be afraid to just roll with it. If you only have one solution to the plot you've written and you want the players to get there, you might never get there. And you might see your plot going long after its expiry date. You really shouldn't try and force your predetermined ending, especially if the players are just not on the track that you wanted them on, because unless you drop some major hints, they may not get there. And even if you drop major hints, they may still not come up with the solution that you originally thought. And if you're constantly trying to sort of go, this is the right thing and this is where it's supposed to go, you might just find yourself getting very frustrated that things aren't just going to plan. Because when it comes to players, nothing goes to plan. When I was in secondary school, one piece of advice I was always given was that only crazy people will attempt the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. If your players aren't getting it and they've come up with something else, is it really a bad idea to change your direction? Piece of advice number 4. You may just have to accept that you don't have an original idea. The LARP I staff for, the Lawyering Trust, has been going on for over 20 years. And the recent issue that I encountered was that I came up with a really good idea. Like, I was proper proud of it. It was interesting and fun, and I felt like my players would really get into it and it'd be great. And then I sent out the first encounter, and a player came up to me when I was back in character to ask me about it. I told them as much as my character knew, and they turned to me and went, "Oh, that sounds exactly like that plot that happened 8 years ago. We know how to fix that. We do this." And promptly walked straight off, and the solution was similar to what I had pictured in my head, and I had to go and write something new. And I had to rewrite the whole thing, and I thought I was being really original, and it turned out I wasn't. So I had to go back and sort of think of something a bit different and a bit new, and I'm happy with what I've come up with. But it was sort of a bit of a blow to sort of go, you don't have an original thought in your head. Which actually does lead on to my final and probably one of the more important ones out of this entire list. So number 5, don't ever be afraid to go and get a second opinion on what you've written. Because you are only one mind, and therefore you're only going to have a fixed number of ideas. And it's really, really good idea to always go and find somebody and go, "Hey, I've got this idea. Does it work?" And they'll go, "Yes, it's brilliant." Or more likely they'll go, "Yeah, I like it, but have you considered this?" Or "What about if this happens?" Or "That's a terrible idea, don't do that." And if you at least find somebody who will let you bounce ideas off them and try new things, you'll find that the process actually goes a lot smoother, and you're less likely to have surprises down the road, and you're more likely to come up with something that is really creative and really fun and that your players will engage with. Because that's the whole point at the end of the day, is to have fun and make sure that other people are having fun too. Okay, so those are the best tips that I have received. I'm sure there are others. If you have tips for me and writing plots, because I will always take advice on board, please do put them in the comments below. I would be so grateful. So I'm actually planning on doing a few more videos about LARP because it is my most favourite hobby. I love it so much. So please subscribe, because I'm planning on releasing as many videos as possible. I will be talking a little bit about how I build characters and other such things like that coming up very soon. So please subscribe, please follow me on Twitter, and please follow me on Instagram, because I like to post up a lot of things, and there'll be lots of LARP stuff as this process goes on. So thank you very much, have a lovely day, see you soon.